What's up, everyone? Welcome back. Hope you're having a good week. Shout out to any new subscribers and everyone who supports my channel. Thank you guys so much. So there's been a lot of buzz, and I expect it to continue for, I don't know, probably a decent amount of time because there are a lot of changes being, I don't know, I don't know if they're necessarily being announced. I guess some of them you consider announcements, like officially. Other ones I think are kind of just like buzz coming from different source, people that have sources and just a lot coming out. So if you have not been made aware yet, which would probably be surprising, Batgirl was canceled. I made a video about that yesterday, or shelved, depending on which terminology you want to use. But regardless, it will not be getting a theatrical or HBO Max release. That is official. Now there are more possible changes coming to light. So the first one I want to start with is Joker 2 will release on October 4th, 2024. So this is really the first time we're seeing an official release date. We knew that this movie was happening because not too long ago, Todd Phillips shared some pictures of a script and of Joaquin Phoenix on his Instagram. Pretty much made it like an official announcement. Then we started seeing rumors about Lady Gaga possibly starring as Harley Quinn alongside Joaquin Phoenix. It seems like that is still kind of hasn't really been confirmed nor denied, but it seems like it's still kind of sticking with these new announcements coming out about the official release date. So maybe that is accurate. Joker 2 will begin filming in December with Joaquin Phoenix and Lady Gaga in talks to star as Joker and Harley Quinn. So it still says in talks. So I don't know if I would consider that an official announcement that she's going to be Harley Quinn, but it seems like at this point it still holds some water to that rumor. Also, according to the Wrap, Deadline, a few different media outlets are reporting about this. A lot of Joker 2 will take place in Arkham Asylum. That makes sense because of the ending of the first Joker movie. It's, he's in an asylum. Seems like that's where it makes sense for it to head in that direction for a sequel, and that's probably where, that makes also sense if Harley Quinn's going to be in the movie, whether it's Lady Gaga or someone else. That's typically where Joker meets Harley Quinn for the first time, and if they're going to be showing the beginning of that relationship in this Joker's universe, it makes sense for a lot of it to take place in Arkham Asylum. So, there's been, again, so much talk about Batgirl. It makes you wonder, are other movies going to get canceled? Blue Beetle, I don't know what's going to happen with that one. I mentioned it in my Batgirl video yesterday that it had a similar situation where it started out as a HBO Max exclusive streaming release. Then it got changed to a theatrical release. And one of the things that was being talked about with Batgirl, and possibly one of the reasons why they decided not to release it, is because it did not hold up to a theatrical standard. And because it wasn't written in a way originally to be released theatrically. And I'm sure there's probably other reasons that we can all speculate on based on our personal opinions, but it seemed like that was a possible reason for them choosing not to release it. So with Blue Beetle, I don't know if the same thing's going to happen or not. But some other things that are coming out, possible changes. Big Screen Leaks is reporting that I'm hearing that internally The Flash is currently undated. WBD is trying to figure out how to best go forward amid all the controversy. I'm also hearing that shelving this one isn't an option due to the high budget and importance to the DCEU moving forward. So I think most people, upon hearing the good news, positive news that Ben Affleck is going to be in Aquaman 2. I also made a video about that if you're interested in watching it. Since Ben Affleck's Batman is going to be in Aquaman 2 instead of Michael Keaton, which totally makes a whole lot more sense to me, then what is Batgirl getting canceled? How does all of this affect The Flash? Because The Flash is where we're supposed to have seen Michael Keaton originally being introduced, bringing that multiverse aspect into the DCEU, bringing in his Batman / Bruce Wayne, and then I guess this is old regime making these decisions that they wanted Michael Keaton to also be the Batman in Batgirl and in Aquaman 2, which originally we're supposed to see both of those movies after The Flash. So I guess based on what was supposed to happen or maybe still is, I don't know, what we had heard before in the past about The Flash is that Michael Keaton's Batman was supposed to somehow become the Batman moving forward because of timelines and all of those types of things. Which I still think, they were just the old regime was trying to find any way to distance themselves from the Snyderverse. And so I feel like that's why they brought in Michael Keaton, so they could try to have some way of bringing in a different Batman to be this universe's Batman and not Ben Affleck's Batman. But now that we know Ben Affleck is going to be in Aquaman 2 instead of Michael Keaton, it really makes you wonder what's going to happen with The Flash. Are they going to make changes to it? Because if Ben Affleck's going to be in Aquaman, then there'd be no, and if they're not doing Batgirl, that's really going to diminish Michael Keaton's presence in the DCEU, which I don't take as a bad thing. I think it's fine if they bring him in for a multiverse type of thing in Flash, but not moving forward. Kind of went into that on my video from yesterday regarding Batgirl, but it just, all of these things tie together. These changes are not independent of one another. They all kind of compound each other because of what it means for the whole DCEU. They're all parts of the whole. So, moving on, Warner Brothers Discovery is considering moving the release dates for Shazam, Fury of the Gods, and Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom. So, another interesting possible change. Again, the Ben Affleck thing, I think, is a recent change. I don't think that was discussed. Obviously, it wasn't discussed before this movie was pushed back because Michael Keaton, they already knew Michael Keaton was supposed to be in Aquaman. But now that they're changing it back to Ben Affleck, which makes more sense because we already have a Batman in this universe, there's no reason to bring in Michael Keaton's Batman except for a multiverse appearance, and that's fine in The Flash. But there's no reason for him to be the Batman moving forward and to be in Batgirl with J.K. Simmons' version of Jim Gordon. That makes no sense whatsoever. Shazam Fury of the Gods is pretty interesting if they move that back because, again, well, actually it got moved up to this year. It was supposed to come out next year, so it got moved up. Maybe they're going to move it back again. Maybe there's changes that they want to make to that movie as well. We did see some Snyder Cut footage being used in the trailer. I don't know if they want to make it more coherent or cohesive with I don't know. Who knows? I really don't know. It's just a lot of speculation. It's a lot going on right now. And I want to go back to Batgirl really quickly because it's still fresh. And okay, I agree with this sentiment. I feel for the cast, for the directors, everyone involved that was working hard on the movie. It was already in post-production. You feel for those people because movies take so much time and dedication and a long, years in the making before they are even being filmed. So you feel for them because they put their time and hard work and effort into creating this. So I definitely feel for that. I totally feel for them. I'm sure it was the directors released a statement. They were shocking and saddened by it. I'm sure Leslie Grace is upset. Totally understandable. I do think it makes sense because of the current state of the DCEU. If it wasn't such a mess, I don't think they would be making these changes because if they were more well established, if it was more solid, if the old regime was not just trying to push things out there just to make money and we're just going to throw everything at the wall and see what sticks. That's kind of the approach that they had Justice League and onward, Justice League 2017 and onward. They were just like, just put something out, just whatever. Just like, you know what I mean? They didn't really have a solid, people keep saying plan. They didn't have a trajectory of how they wanted things to play out. They were kind of just like going from one movie to the next and making decisions based off of that one. And it was not a long-term, solid, coherent plan that they had in place. They were just like trying to distract fans away from the negativity, which Cultured Nerd tweeted about it, and I totally agree with what they were saying, that they're trying to a lot of the announcements they made were to distract away from what Ray Fisher was bringing to light, how people of color were being treated, and all of these allegations that we know came to light, and all of these things that were coming out about how people were being treated. And they really wanted to distract away from that. They know it's bad for their image. And I think that now that a new leadership is taking over, and they are trying to be much more organized and make decisions that are better for the overall live action universe that they're trying to build. I think that that's why they did this with Batgirl, because it makes sense for them, and possibly pushing other movies back and making changes to them, because the old regime was just trying to like deviate away from what they started with, which leaves people confused. And it's like, well, what are you going to do next? Why aren't you focusing on your main characters first? Yes, bring in Batman, bring in Batgirl, bring in Supergirl, bring in those characters that people would like to see live action on the big screen in a, large scale universe, but bring them in a way that makes sense. That's my opinion. If you want to bring in Batgirl, fine. Bring her in a Batman movie. Ben Affleck's script had a Batgirl in it. Bring her in with Batman. Introduce her that way. Introduce Supergirl with Superman. Like, make it make sense. If you're going to bring in those characters, yes, there are room for those characters that have, maybe a smaller audience, a smaller story, but bring them in a way that makes sense. Don't just all of a sudden give Batgirl a movie that has Michael Keaton's Batman when we are like, when we have Ben Affleck's, but it doesn't make sense. They were just trying to distract, throw everything at the wall to see what sticks, trying to, they don't want to look bad optically. And I think that now that now that it's Warner Brothers Discovery, they are trying to repair that and make decisions that are smart, and things that they want, that they're more likely to be a success for them, instead of putting out something that was, I guess, to them didn't meet the standards of a theatrical quality release or what they want to put out there for their brand. It's better not to put stuff out there if it doesn't meet your standards for how you want to represent your brand. So that to me makes sense. And it's interesting what the directors of Batgirl had to say about using Michael Keaton's Batman in the movie. This is what they had to say. Not obviously not right now, but when the movie was still a go. Well, we'd sort of give the same answer, because we would also ask, oh, you have J.K. Simmons from the Snyderverse, and we got Michael Keaton from the Burtonverse. Exactly. What's the situation there? And they would say, don't worry about it. And I'm assuming, since this is a screenshot, I can't see the whole thing. I'm assuming that he's referring to the studio. They would say, don't worry about it. We got a plan, which we've heard 1,000 times before from the old regime, right? When they want directors to do what they're saying instead of what makes sense, because it makes sense for the directors to have those questions. Like, don't you already have a established Batman in your universe, which is Ben Affleck? And remember, one of the directors also had shared a picture a while back looking at Ben Affleck's Batcowl. So I don't know if that's what they originally wanted to do, and the studio was like, no, use Michael Keaton. Don't worry about it. We'll explain it to the audience. Will understand. So don't worry. They said, don't worry about it. We got a plan. They never really explained that aspect to us, but I guess you're going to have to see the other movies to understand what happens. Why the reason is that we ended up in sort of a spaghetti of multiverses in that aspect. It's going to be a delicious spaghetti, I'm sure of that. So here, even the directors were not given a clear explanation at the time of how and why Michael Keaton was going to be the Batman in Batgirl. So it's pretty obvious that was a decision by the old regime, because they didn't want to use Ben Affleck's Batman. Maybe he didn't want to. I don't know. They're just. It's been obvious for years now that they've been trying to distance themselves from anything that was established in Man of Steel, BVS. They went even left field with Wonder Woman with her sequel, and all of the things that we had heard about the Flash. It makes sense, like that they were trying to use that the Flash movie. The Flash keeps coming up with all of these other changes because of what we have heard about what it was going to mean, what it's going to mean moving forward for Batman, for Superman. Possibly, a possible thing in that movie is that Supergirl landed here on Earth instead of Superman. So moving forward, there's going to only be Supergirl, not Superman. That's why the Flash is such a central point to all of these changes being made, except for Joker, because Joker kind of stands on its own. It's a whole separate thing, right? But for the rest of these movies, I think most people are going to be interested to see what happens with the Flash because of this multiverse thing and because of the way the old regime was trying to change, like, canon, what it comes down to in the DCEU. So understandably, a lot of people are upset by the fact that Batgirl was canceled, especially because I think most people are sympathizing with the cast, the crew, the directors, and because the movie was already in post-production, people sympathize with that it feels unfair for that to happen. But I think it's important to keep in mind possible reasons why they made that decision. Not just that, but also why the old regime even decided to do Batgirl at this point in time in the first place. So my first inclination was kind of in line with what the Culture Nerd had to say, and they word it really well, and they kind of condense it into a bite-sized things that I really agree with. So I want to share that. The previous management of WB scrambled to announce projects at DC that would ensure the longevity of the people that were in fear of losing their jobs. Some of these films were announced with minimal budgets, so they could be quickly filmed and released for a quick profit. Makes sense. And I don't think any of this is surprising to us who have been keeping up with the past few years of how WB previously was operating. The problem is that some of these projects were allegedly announced directly to combat the racism allegations from Ray Fisher. And I was kind of talking about that earlier. Allegedly, they believed that if they announced a diverse cast and crew, people would ignore the allegations that were coming at them. But the fact of the matter is that the previous management ran the company into the ground, and now the new management is trying to make the company profitable again. And the only way to do that, it seems, is a fresh start. So this really makes so much sense. This is why, kind of what I was trying to allude to earlier is that there are certain reasons why they're making these decisions, because if the previous regime didn't really have the intention, like they didn't, why, you have to think about why were they announcing all of these, think about all the different announcements we were hearing about, Val-Zod and a Black Clark Kent movie and all these different things, all these different, like Black Canary, all these different projects that were being announced that seemed kind of random and from out of nowhere. Like, again, yes, make movies for different characters. Fine. Bring them in to have them live action. Fine. Great. But what is your purpose in doing so? Are you bringing them in a way that makes sense, so that they can fit into the multiverse, into this multiverse or into this live action universe that you're building? Are they coming in? Are they being introduced in a way that makes sense? Or are you just throwing them out there and hoping that people watch the movie? That doesn't really seem like a strategic way to bring in these, I don't want to say B-level characters, but the characters that are not like, when you think of the main DC Justice League characters, the characters that you expect to have to come down the line a little bit farther down the line after those main characters are established. Bring them in a way that makes sense. Introduce them in a way that feels natural to the progression of the universe, not just something bad comes out about us, so we're going to make this announcement. They were very reactionary. A lot of people pointed that out plenty of times when these movies were getting announced, all these projects that seemed kind of random. It seemed very reactionary to what was going on, surrounding things that were being said about WB and people that work there, and things that they were allowing to happen. Very reactionary. So I think that's what people need to keep in mind. And yes, again, we sympathize with the people that are kind of getting the blunt end of this, that are taking, it sucks. It sucks for them. I hope that someday people do get to see Batgirl. There's nothing wrong with that. But release it at a time when you're more established and more, everything is like, clean up this mess first. Tidy it up, tighten it up, make it make sense. Let her come in at a time that feels organic and natural to the universe. You know, focus on what is going on that's going to be the larger scale projects: Shazam, Aquaman, The Flash, and the Black Adam's coming up. Like, let those things play, like, just tighten, make it make sense. You don't need to panic and bring in Michael Keaton and just, we're gonna have him be the Batman. Like, it doesn't make any sense. So I think that is the main thing that they're trying to do, is clean up this mess, make everything make sense, have a coherent, organized, linear, like a strategy that makes sense for this vast universe. Because, you know, once the original slate that we saw years ago, around the time that BVS and all of those things were announced, that original slate got destroyed. So we wanted them to make changes, and that is what's happening. It sucks, yes, that this movie and possible other movies besides Batgirl are going to kind of get nixed in the process, but we wanted them to make changes, and that's what they're doing. So we got to just see how it plays out. And, obviously they are appreciating Joker, though, which I think is a good thing, because the old regime didn't want, they were like, oh, I don't want to, this is scary, we don't want to do that. So at least they are making decisions and giving it an official release date and a time for when it's going to start filming. But we'll see. I'm sure more stuff is going to be coming out soon, so we'll try to keep up with all of it. But thank you guys for watching. Check out the links in the description. I appreciate all the support again. Don't forget to leave a thumbs up and or subscribe and hit the notification bell. We're probably going to be talking about a bunch of stuff in the coming days anyways, or weeks, who knows. But thank you guys. See you soon.